Is Sherb's hair real? Yes, it's real. And then at Caroline Connors, does Sherb have to put rubber bands around his ankles to keep his socks from falling? No, I don't, because I wear socks from STA and they are excellent and hug my skinny legs just fine. Thank you, Drew.
Wow. Good morning, Misfits. You were tuning into another episode of Two Old Injured Dudes Talk About Fitness.
Oi.
Just kidding. You're tuning into the Misfit Athletics Podcast question and answer edition. As always, we are going to start this off with the grip test. Now, I am excited and scared for two reasons. One, the Pebble is still out of the office. We don't yet have proof that he can actually surf. He's sending but it's a photo.
Could be photoshopped.
Exactly. Haters will say it's shopped. I'm saying it's shopped. So once we get a video, maybe. He wants to put that up in the new studio, by the way. He wants to put that photo of himself up there, and then he's going to get a T-shirt.
I'm going to say no because he's wearing a T-shirt in the water. I thought the whole reason you went someplace tropical so you could like shred the gnar and you're bathing.
If you're out on the water all day, shirtless.
He wouldn't burn. The first time of the year, he
burnt on the plane on the way to Nicaragua. So I'm excited for that reason, and I'm scared because Sherb pulled his hamstring and is not overtraining right now and could potentially beat me in the grip test.
And meditating too.
Oh, goodness.
I got 3 days in a row.
I'm in
going
trouble.
For day 4 today.
All right.
I don't believe it.
You're up. You're up, little guy.
My hands are sweaty. All right, just press on. Is that how you do this?
Don't fuck with me.
Start. Nope, that one didn't count. I slipped.
What was it?
Nope, didn't happen. I slipped. Start again.
I win no matter what.
No way. See you do a mulligan. 3, 2, 1.
It never counts.
Cool. I win.
63. Oh, it's because it's on kilos, you goon.
Oh, so you got multiplied by 7, I think.
I don't know how to.
What'd I do?
I don't. That's still not good, though.
I broke it.
63
That's how good I was doing.
Still not good.
You doing kilos?
Didn't work.
Yeah, see, I beat him.
It says, okay.
What's high score mean?
This is good. This is good stuff.
This is the content people subscribe
This
for.
is the content
This is what you're here for.
People are here for. We're just pausing for a commercial break. Oh, you got 139.4.
All right. But as terrible as always.
148.6. What did you get that first time?
Said 62.
Okay, so it's kilos.
That can't be right.
So it's kilos. All right. That's back-to-back victories. I'm not gonna lie, I feel fantastic.
I thought I'd get one while he was gone, but
yeah,
it didn't happen.
Yeah, no, you didn't.
But you did.
The first victory. Speaking of victories, the first victory was during the Mackenzie Riley podcast, which we recorded last week and dropped on Monday. Well, it's Monday. I'm in the future right now. It dropped last Monday. Great episode digging into what it has been like for her in the past year, kind of a whirlwind year. She's got a kid now. She gave birth. You got the postpartum, and then all of a sudden she comes in 33rd in the world in the open and has to figure out what that means for her. And she's definitely still trying to figure all that out, but it was really cool to be able to catch up with her and have her give some context on what that has all meant to her. And then probably most importantly, there's a lot of people out there that can relate to what she has gone through. So for her to be able to jump on and talk about that was great.
I think there's a lot of lessons there, talking about someone who has a reduced amount of time each day to train, because she's taking care of her son, being mom. And then 2, even though it's not necessarily an injury, coming back from pregnancy can be like having a catastrophic injury where you just had major surgery. She gave birth naturally, but that is quite a recovery. So there are definitely lots of good nuggets of information in there. If you're someone who's training on a limited time scale, or if you have, something you're coming back from, plenty of stuff that you can apply to your real life there. So definitely worth listening to. A great episode.
Shout out to Hannah and Kim for laying waste to Sherb and Hunter in the Team Misfit.
They laid waste to us?
Yeah, they beat you by like 6 or 7 rounds.
Good for them.
Ouch. Yeah, I think they got like 17 or 18 rounds.
Yeah, and you guys got what, 10?
I think we got 14 and change. 1,400 rounds.
Some cut out there.
9 or 5, 6.
We got a couple of new videos on the YouTube channel. We talk a lot about athlete IQ. And when we are asking you guys, everyone that's listening to the podcast, to sort of be the executive producers of our YouTube channel, we're talking about Athlete IQ. We could be talking about something that you are personally struggling with. Hey, I know I want to get better at this thing, but I haven't had the opportunity to really kind of figure it out or get coached through it. So that would be one avenue. And then another avenue would be, I see this on the blog and I don't fully understand the concept behind it. So a lot of it's about getting to know yourself as an athlete, and you can send us, you know, topics that you want to see. You could even send in videos to podcast@misfitathletics.com, and we could do, you know, sort of a live video review. We have the technology to be able to pull that off. So new to our YouTube channel, back squat speed work. Speed work, you know, the dynamic work that, you know, is largely based on West Side Barbell is so important. And the idea that you could get, you know, just as strong or close to just as strong without loading the barbell up too heavy every day to take over your central nervous system, sort of hijack it before you get into your conditioning, or maybe you're trying to do it post conditioning and you're not able to get into it. This concept is so important, but it is so execution driven. You know, if you go to the West Side model, they have their max effort days, and Louis' thing on max effort day is like point A to point B. I don't care. Now, while we don't necessarily subscribe to that because skill transfer is so important in our sport, the speed work is not that. It has to be form focused. You have to have the concentric portion of the lift be very fast and powerful to create force production. So you are supplying the force production and you are supplying the form, because we are going from, you know, maybe 5 to 15 reps on that, you know, max effort type of day, all the way to 30 to 50 reps on a speed day. So you can really set the tone for how you move and how to get stronger with the speed day. So make sure you guys check that out. And then last but not least, the Romanian deadlift is an amazing movement. There's so many people that struggle to get pulling volume in because of back injuries, because their midline is not where it needs to be to catch up with their grip strength and their leg drive. We see that so much. So you can add the RDL in and get so much stronger with your pulling strength. And then also, you know, it's no secret that every once in a while a CrossFitter will accidentally use their hamstrings and be annihilated the following day. So the idea that we can remove ourselves from those metcons, from the type of things that would blow up our hamstrings, and work on them in a vacuum is extremely powerful. So make sure you check that video out. Just make sure that you're doing the movement right, because that's really important. And then also, like, if you do it wrong in terms of volume, you're going to be in real deep trouble.
The way I like to think of the RDL for a lot of athletes, you know, a good portion of you can get in the right position for a deadlift and don't put yourself in a compromised, maybe rounded lower back position. But there are plenty of athletes, for injury reasons, for lifestyle factors, that can't get into a good position with a traditional deadlift. This is an excellent way to build up that robust posterior chain and be able to create that violent hip extension that we're looking for when someone's locking out a really heavy deadlift. But again, without thrashing your central nervous system and allowing you to perform what is essentially the #1 benefit from pulling from the ground, which is learning those hinging mechanics. So such a great way to tidy that up, whether you're brand new to the sport of exercise is like a thing that you do, or if you're someone who's just trying to build a better midline and posterior chain. To me, it's like a no-brainer that you want that in your program.
I would also say that it is the safest way to come back from a back injury and start deadlifting again. The problem with, you know, a lot of people will do like rack pulls. The problem with the rack pull is, again, we create that tension and potentially create low back flexion as we're lifting it up. When you take the bar out of a rack and then back up and do the RDL, you're already in extension and you're fighting to stay in extension. And if you're coming back from injury or not, you're fighting, and that determines what your range of motion is. So it's, you know, in the video, we talk about how it's the greatest, you know, hamstring accessory movement that there is. We stand by that. And we think it's a really important thing for people to add to their repertoire. So make sure you check out that video. Last but not least, you know, Magic Bike. Sherb thought it was called Magic Bus for some reason.
I've seen that movie Magic Gus. It's great.
Yes.
My favorite movie.
Favorite movie. It's Alex Mack as an assassin from Iceland. So Magic Bike is
a treat.
I'm sure the video is somewhat entertaining, because I go from like excited and, you know, probably got the bike up to about 1900 to death. And what you did not see in that video was the aftermath. Ted captured some of it. He might have been spying on me at certain points, but I went into the gym and tried to ride the C2 bike because my legs hurt so bad, but I couldn't ride the C2 bike. So I was laying down. That hurt more than the C2 bike. So I was walking laps and doing these stretches on the jerk blocks. And Sherb kept telling me it looked like I was twerking.
He was indeed twerking.
Yeah, it was rough. When you're not in the best shape, but you still can send it on the bike, yeah, it's a hoot.
It always works. It really does.
It was like 2 hours later, and I asked you if you wanted some cured meat, and you were like, "Oh, my heart rate's still up."
Yeah, dude.
I don't think it's gone down yet.
There's been multiple occasions in the last 3 months where I've been wheezing 24 hours after a workout. That's not it.
Still not my favorite story. My favorite story is the one where you told me you went out and you were doing, I think, every 6 minutes for 30 minutes or every 5 minutes for 30 minutes. You did a 30-second sprint, and then you cried in the shower for a few hours afterwards as you're trying to come back to earth.
Well, I actually think I was going to a wedding, and I was like, I got to get in the shower in 30 minutes. So I got on the bike and did max calories in 30 seconds every 5 minutes for 30 minutes.
That's terrible.
And then the shower, luckily, was like 6 feet from the bike. So I crawled into the shower, and I actually still think I had clothes on. And I turned the shower on, and I think I was in there for like 45 minutes. I couldn't move. It's like I didn't go get water or anything like that. That was one of the worst workouts that I've ever done in my entire life.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. We were at a training camp once down in Houston, Texas, and it was like 5x1K row with like a minute or 2 minutes rest. And I remember crawling from All Sports floor to their bathroom because it was the only part of their gym that was air conditioned. And I just laid on the linoleum floor for probably about 45 minutes until my temperature went from like 300 degrees to like 280.
And then the dude that was like sleeping on the cot in there turned the light on, scared the shit out of you.
Where'd you come from? Sorry, just cooling off in here.
That was the wildest gym ever.
That was a wild gym.
Crazy. You pulled your hamstring, dude.
Yeah, dog.
How'd you do that? Did you warm up for your sprints?
No, sir. I did not. I did not
Telling
practice what I preach to the affiliate members. So one of the things we've been doing with teammisfit.com is, trying to find creative ways to get athletes strong, but also give them the opportunity to go heavy. And, one of the things we do speed work for at the affiliate level is to teach athletes how to move quickly. But, a lot of athletes like to build confidence with squatting a heavy barbell. So we've been doing some very heavy sets of 5, 3s, and 2s, working down to 1s. And after each set, you do something that's very short and explosive. So we've done box jumps and med ball squats with squat jumps and some assault bike sprints. But this week it was sprint on your own 2 feet. And you and I had been meeting most of the day on some other things program related. And I was like, I got a half hour. I can go jump into this. So, warm up to the squat, do the glute activation, get into it. And then someone's like, hey, you want to race me? And I was like, no, I was not going to do that. Like, come on, come race. And I'm like, all right, I'll come race you. Get through all but the very last one. Last round, there's like 6 or 7 people ready to race. And I was like, I'm jumping into this last one, try to beat them all. And there's some quick people at the gym. And right as we crossed the threshold into the gym, felt the pop. And then I was like, yep, that's what I get for not warming up. So it's a hard lesson that unfortunately happens to all of us every once in a while, where we don't take the necessary steps to prepare ourselves for something that's that aggressive. And, it's just a learning lesson that every once in a while unfortunately happens. And it's happened to me a few times. So
also something to note, if you guys are doing sprint work and you get a group together to do it, that is great. It pushes the intensity. The issue is, and you find this out, through sport typically, is let's say your friend is really fast and you are very quick and you're doing 50 meter, 100 meter sprints, whatever it is. You blow them, blow past them off the line, and then they start to catch up to you. We typically see the hamstring pull or tear when an athlete is at what they're perceiving as fast as they can run, and then they try to turn it up another gear. We typically get a little bit of a reach in the step when it comes to that. And without fail, when you do that enough, if you are powerful enough, see that's a lot of times like it's a gift and a curse. You get an athlete that's more fast twitch, they are able to try to overreach in that scenario, and they tear their hamstring.
Yeah, it's one of those times where, like, I again probably should have done a little better job warming up. Again, I didn't really do very much other than.
But you did have that scenario. You did try to beat someone inside, and that's one of those things where it's like, you know what, I've gotten the benefit out of this. And it was great to push to reach peak speed, but at that point, trying to reach again is not a great idea.
Yeah, it goes back to me like the idea of trying to like test when you're training and train when you're testing kind of thing. So you got the stimulus already. You got what we're achieving. I got up to speed, got a good sprint in, and then it was because I'm a boy with, big ego. I guess like, all right, fuck it, I'll be all you guys. Let's race. And, things happen. So for me, it's now be smart for a few days, pay attention to how you're moving, make sure that you get all the extra sleep you can, the extra little CBD cream on the hamstring, like doing those things, making sure that I'm taking care of myself. And, I'll talk to a few physios that are in the area and they're like, hey, you're going to be on the shelf for 2 to 4 weeks, but just don't be an idiot. So I'm doing my best not to be an idiot right now, but it's not easy when you have exercise addiction like I do.
Yeah, it didn't work here on the grip test, that's for sure. And then for me, in the battle right now, right calf is not happy with my activities. It's weird too. It was just a long, not necessarily slow because it was an interval, but it was assault bike, handstand push up, double under. And I did 5 rounds and went for the 6th round and just had locked up on me. And I finished the workout, but then sort of paid for it for the next couple of weeks. Luckily, I was able to sort of overcome that. But I think we're going to be able to get into that a little bit more because some of our questions
about injury
that we have here are related to that. So without further ado,
the Q&A.
At Off the Vine Rod 13. What's your favorite cue or phrase to say to your athletes to dig deeper during workouts?
I assume this is to help the athlete kind of get back in tune with this. So I like to think this is 2 things, either macro or micro. Macro is, hey, what brought you in the gym? What are you here for? I think every once in a while it's worthwhile to say to yourself, hey, remember, I'm choosing.
You're going to say all of this to them?
No. So like, I would talk to them, if it was a trend I noticed, it would be like, hey, just remember why you're doing this. Like bring that out of focus and that attention back to the reason you started. But for most athletes, when I'm trying to help them stay moving, to essentially trick them into staying, active the entire time, I'd say focus on some part of your movement. One of the things we like to say with like chest to bar pull-ups, for example, is feet, hips, feet, hips, feet, hips. If you can get a little mantra going that in your mind, you can stop thinking about how out of breath you are, how your grip feels, what's coming next in the workout. Having those little things kind of keep you in tune and focus, I really do think make a dramatic difference. The trick is you have to figure out what that cue is for you, and they're going to vary by the movement. So, for some people, let's make sure you get good leg drive on the rower, or make sure you're not arching your neck when you're doing handstand walking. They all have their own. But to me, I think it helps to always go back to movement efficiency and creating like a 1 then a 2 or a 1 then a 2 kind of a thing over and over in your head.
For sure. Yeah, I would say if it was very general like that, I agree with Sherb. It would be focus on your movement. We had a lot of athletes that were sort of in that pain cave when they got to the point where they were doing the bar muscle ups in 21.3. And that was the time where it's like focus, just be maniacal about front swing, knee to bar, hip to bar. I'm going to breathe when I push out, whatever that is. But I would say in general, getting on the same page with someone who could motivate you during the workout before it starts would be really important. So I'm going to focus on X. I'm not going to drop below 1,300 calories per hour on the rower. I am going to try to do this unbroken. I'm going to try to do that. And what can happen is you have these amazing plans and then the workout hits you in the face. As you recover, sometimes it's hard to go back to that place. You basically just forget.
Yeah,
you're in the moment too much. So it's nice to have a coach to bring you back to that place. So I would say you can actually negotiate these things pre-workout and say, okay, this is my focus for today. This is what I'm after. And then if it's actually a test workout, if you're competing or it is a test workout, the agreement can be on, what's your mindset here? And you can get those tiny 1-word cues. Like you could literally just say, remember, remember, like that sort of thing. I think that could really get people going.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to figure out what works for you, but having something shortened to the point where you're not just distracting yourself for too much. You can take yourself completely out of the workout. If you start, repeating a full verse of something, you might knock yourself out of the focus you need for that piece. But again, I think shortened to the point, something that reminds you, whether that's in your head or how you're moving, all those things kind of apply. All right, question number 2, at Mrs. Natalia Saunders. How do you keep motivated during an injury? I tore my meniscus during the AGOQ and I'm heartbroken.
This is what I can say to begin is the fact that you're heartbroken is a sign that you give a shit about this thing and that you can overcome the injury itself. If you have an injury and you have this epiphany, like, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm bored, like I don't love competitive CrossFit anymore or whatever, then that's a totally separate conversation. But as an athlete, you're telling 2 coaches that you're heartbroken that this happened to you at the time that it did. And to us, that means, okay, this is a dedicated athlete. This is the type of athlete that's going to be able to go in there and do the rehab, the prehab, all of that stuff so that they can come back from it. It doesn't happen again. We have seen athletes come back from basically every type of injury, including a meniscus tear. And it's one of those things where, you know, maybe mentally they have, you know, the opportunity over a period of time to, you know, sort of let things breathe a little bit and not be stressed out about training all the time. And they come back stronger than ever. So we've had a lot of athletes, you know, get done their, you know, they finish the CrossFit Games and whatever, September, October, have surgery and they're ready to go again, depending on what that surgery was. So we've seen it enough times, and it has much more to do with who you are as a person and what you're capable, you know, what you're willing to do than it does this happened to me, because it's not in a vacuum. You are you. You are the type of person that trains hard. You're the type of person that fights hard. You will be able to do that and be able to come back from it.
Yeah, I'd say, kind of speaking for some serious injuries, I've torn my Achilles tendon in both of my legs, and that's a long recovery. It's not the most fun, but you get in a situation where you're like, I can't do these, you know, whatever few things, and it feels like it's not worth doing anything because I can't do those few things. So for me, it was an opportunity to get better with my upper body. One of the things I used to struggle with a long time ago was handstand push-ups, and you can do handstand push-ups when you're wearing a boot on your foot. So did a ton of strict handstand push-ups. So for you, it could be something like, hey, there's been something I've neglected in my fitness that is not impacted by my lower half that I could dramatically get better at. Maybe I need to get better at pulling gymnastics or pressing gymnastics, or maybe my stability is not great, so I got to get some handstand holds under my belt, or it's midline related. But finding things that you can work on for a lot of athletes is the way to stay motivated and say, all right, where can I make the most progress in my overall fitness? Because I've had this gap in a long time, and because there are so many things I could do, I never really spent the time to really hone in on this one particular weakness. This would be a great opportunity to do that. So, you know, I think that your 35 musings from 35 years really apply to this. When you find a weakness, you find a gap, like, it's a blessing. You can use that to now say, all right, here's what I need to work on. Let's make a change.
Indeed. All right, we got another one from Off the Vine. What indicators distinguish discomfort / pain to push through and when to stop? I think the problem with this is more about in the moment versus afterwards. You typically know the answer when the dust settles, right?
Yep.
You typically know, you know, I don't think I have the metabolic machinery to like cause heart failure or, you know what I mean? like the things that are unsafe are when you're working out and you're in literal injury pain. That just makes no sense, because, you know, everyone listening to this podcast, whether they know it or not, probably has a growth mindset, and you are digging yourself into a grave. You're making things worse when your entire goal is to make things actually better. So I would say that's most of the time you sort of know that it is what it is. If you're on the line, just modify your workout. Like, I'm dealing with some people right now that are training for semifinals, and they got some odds and ends, just some things that are bothering them a little bit. And, you know, they think that if they don't do handstand push-ups for a few days or muscle-ups for a few days, that something's going to happen. Guess what? Most of these things that we do are vessels to create a stimulus within a workout. I can help you create that stimulus without going, you know, super shoulder intensive. So if you're on the line, definitely modify it. But if you give yourself a free pass in a workout, and you realize it afterwards, just make sure you don't make it a habit.
Yeah, the thing that stuck in my mind immediately was there's a definite line between discomfort and pain. We are trying to create discomfort. We are not trying to create pain. And unfortunately, sometimes it feels like they might feel like the same thing. But, you know, if you feel like you're being stuck with a hot poker in the middle of your workout because something's really aggravated, like, it's not worth pushing through. And like you just said, the movements themselves aren't as important as the stimuli. So if you, for example, can't run very hard because you have something going on with your lower leg, if you C2 bike or assault bike hard, you'll get the same stimuli and you won't be putting that joint at risk. So, you know, just be smart about how you do it and realize that you should probably be able to tell the difference between that discomfort and that pain.
One more note that's really important. If you have a nagging injury and you can warm it up enough for it not to hurt while you're exercising and then it hurts again after, that is also a problem. That's something that a lot of people can do. You can get enough blood flow, you can get the neuroepinephrine pumping, and then you don't feel anything, and then you're 2 steps back. You took 1 step forward and you took 2 or 3 steps back. So
man, you don't want to be hanging on.
Stay away from it.
You don't want to be hanging on that forever. You want that lingering thing to go away.
Are you gonna censor this next question here?
Yes. please talk about how to activate big energy at the 9 a.m. housewife affiliate class, and then yeet at the end of that. And that is from at Steve Maye. I like this topic a lot because there are going to be hours at your affiliate that aren't going to always have the same bravado macho man, like let's crank up the aggressive rock music and like shake the rig and punch one another until we're doing handstand push-ups at 1,000 miles an hour. A big part of your affiliate, and I think this is something that all affiliate owners should really listen to, is that you should be cultivating a fun atmosphere that is safe and makes the people want to come in and understand that they're not going to always have the same vibe. At our affiliate, both here in Wyndham and in Portland, there are different class hours that have different vibes, but you should celebrate the fact that they're unique and different because they attract different clientele and different people. And if you can find the right hook to these people, and I think a big part of coaching is making sure you get to know them very well and you can figure out what motivates them, you can create that same type of energy. It just might not look exactly the same at 9 a.m. the way it does at 5 p.m.
When Thanos puts the final stone in, he doesn't get rid of all of the other stones, right? And then he can snap his fingers and kill everybody or whatever. You need to understand, the two things from the 35 lessons that come to mind is share your gift, steal others. And what was the other one? Everyone is a genius. So when you go into that class, you want to absorb the attributes that those people have, because it's amazing going into a CrossFit class and seeing the energy that a coach brings versus this one, having just such an intense knowledge base. And all of those things come together to create a CrossFit gym, an amazing place. And I think that is the same thing with the attributes that different people bring into class. Some people do have that big energy, and then they're the type of person like me that crushes the first assault bike sprint and comes in last on the last one. You have another person who comes in and is consistent all the way through. You have someone who has an excellent attitude, someone who is like super fired up or awake or ready to, be nice to everybody at 9 a.m., which not a lot of people can do. So I would just say that when you're going into it, bring your energy to class, but steal that final stone and be like, okay, what is this other attribute that I can bring to the table? Because if you're in an entire class of other people, I guarantee there are things that you can learn from them in terms of the personality that you bring and how you sort of adapt and go through it.
Yeah, I think that each coach has an opportunity to develop a different vibe with each hour. And I think that you shouldn't celebrate one as better than the other. They're just different, and figuring out what gets that group motivated and having the best time, to me, is like the absolute best litmus test of the success of your affiliate. Do people leave there in a better mood when they walked in? Are they talking about it with their friends? If you accomplish both of those things, but the classes look a little bit different, that doesn't matter. You've done what you need to do. You've done the right thing.
I need aviators and bigger muscles to answer this next question. Really just scare the shit out of people. Seamus MK, can doing less CrossFit make you better at CrossFit? He is insinuating that skill and aerobic work could potentially be better than Metcons. The answer is no. It is a logically sound argument until you put it into practice. We understand it because we have tried it on a personal level. As coaches, when you're going through with athletes that have such a robust, engine when it comes to CrossFit, that you can overcorrect sometimes and have them do too much of that work. And then they come out the other side and they stole a couple of points here, but then their CrossFit fell off a little bit. The answer is just no. I mean, you have to be such a ridiculously unique case. Someone that comes to mind is Brady. Brady could let off the gas pedal a little bit and do some more strength work, but that's because that's a box that he has not checked off yet. If you have done CrossFit for a while and you've checked off all these boxes, you just take a couple of eggs and put them into the other basket. You never, ever, ever put all your eggs into one basket, or, 6 here and 6 here. It does not work. It does not make sense to do that. So I'll just, sort of leave it at that. Again, we understand why. We've been there. We've been doing this for 10 years. When you're younger and not as smart, or, the ego kind of takes over, you think you have these awesome ideas, and you go off in the shadows and do this one thing. You get way better at that, and then other things suffer. And you cannot, move the sliders around, your Madden score. You can't, take one and slide it all the way down and slide the other one up. It's just not going to work in the grand scheme of things in competitive CrossFit.
Yeah, I think, again, once you have a good base of something, then you can, make the argument for, having focused periods of time where you really address one singular thing for a period. Like, I'm working with Alexis right now, and one of the things that she wanted to get better at, some of the monostructural work. So she's been doing a lot of long bikes. And, as exciting as it is to say, all right, she's getting a lot better at those things, she did say to me the other day, like, I had an overhead squat workout and I didn't have so much confidence there. And each day we only have so much, give a shit with. So if we only put our eggs in all of the going long basket and you never ever touch that barbell, when it comes back up, it's going to surprise you and it's going to knock you for a loop. So it's really important, again, that you can focus on parts of those things, or maybe introducing some of those, smaller foci for a very specific amount of time. But if it just becomes your everyday everything, again, you're going to leave something on the table and you're going to lose confidence with other things. All right. At StephWitt16, a Misfit Gym Portland member, is it ever okay to ignore the intended stimulus for the example of skill work or lifting heavier than the usual weight? And I assume that means that you've talked with your coach and then
but that's, I think the insinuation, we got to change the word ignore to modify, to personalize. I think that's where you get the most bang for your buck, right?
Yeah.
So we're writing programming for a group of people. And if we're trying to perfect that programming for an individual, then there need to be modifications. But the insinuation of ignoring something would mean, fuck it, this is just what I want to do, I think. Yep. So the answer is no. But then if we change the question a little bit, the answer is obviously yes. I would say if you're drawn more and more to, I want to put more weight on the bar, you got to put a magnifying glass on your movement and make sure that that's actually the right thing. Because, dude, I mean, you're talking to us. Let's go heavy. Yeah. Like, that's what we like to do. We're both from, we're born in the darkness. We come from the football locker room. Yes. Like, that's where, people screaming at each other and throwing straps on and doing double body weight hang reverse curls and all that good stuff. So we understand the draw to those things. When you're personalizing, there's things like, making sure that the 1 rep max that you're working off is actually something that you can currently do. We would call that a training max for a lot of athletes. People who hit a PR way off a long time ago, they're not feeling as good about the lift now, but haven't done and updated. Boom, 95%, 90%. Like, if you ask yourself, what could I hit today? Sometimes that is what you should work off in your actual percentages. I'm not sure if she's insinuating that she should take weight off the bar or put it on, though. So both of those situations are different.
I have a little bit more perspective on this just because Steph and I have talked about this in affiliate class specifically. And my answer, and kind of going off our conversations, would be it all depends on what you're trying to achieve. If it's just for the sake of trying to get closer to the RX or to, because you want to put yourself in that situation, yes, there are times to test yourself. And every once in a while, like, you've been modifying things day in and day out, and you're like, you know what, I've been really working at this one thing and I want to see where I'm at. And you have a conversation with your coach or with your training partners or whoever you kind of spitball ideas with, then it's appropriate. I don't want it to turn into, like, any athlete just becomes, I know that's what's on the board, I got to do exactly that because that's what I want to do, and they ignore what the intended benefit of that piece is. So I would say, as long as you have a specific reason for doing so, like you have something comes to your mind about what you're trying to work on in this instance, that occasionally it's appropriate. I would just say that more often than not, that, if you can kind of just come in, show up, do the workout the way it's intended, that you're going to get that robust fitness. And, you have those things where you're like, oh, I really haven't done this movement or that weight in a really long time. It shows back up. And because you've been so good with getting good intensity in your workout, all of a sudden it's a thing of the past and you're able to do it no problem.
I think it would be really good for anybody that's wondering about this question to go back and listen to the Scaled to CrossFit Games episode, because we talk about when someone makes that true transition from RX to Hatchet, they do it on their own. So you would do the lifting in class as prescribed, maybe small tweaks, but maybe it's the wrong lift altogether for what you're trying to focus on and get better at. That's open gym time. That's, sort of on your own time when you're trying to do that. Obviously, if you go to Misfit Gym Portland, you can ask one of us and we'll tell you exactly what should be done in those side sessions. But a lot of that is, the modifying and the personalization is fantastic until it's not, until it becomes what Seamus asked us about, sort of overcorrecting a little bit. All right. Caroline Connors would like to know how much you had to pay Noelle to date you.
Funny story. She stalked me. It was the other way around. She came to me. I didn't go to her. I actually told her that I wasn't interested for the longest time. And then she convinced me otherwise when we were in China for 6 weeks during my junior year. So unfortunately, there's no paying store, nothing like that. It was
that's how you know you're good though, because back then you smoked fake cigarettes, you were fat, and you had a mullet.
I look good. I got a good look. We should.
A broken foot.
I'm gonna dig that one up. I'm getting scolded at the Great Wall of China because I'm scaling it in a walking boot because my Achilles is torn. Good times. Good times.
Good times. All right.
At Monty McFly, what is the optimal amount of cheese pre and post workout? I feel like this really hits home with both of us. I'll let you give your answer first before I give mine.
All right, Misfits, just a quick break to shout out our show sponsors and hopefully save you a little bit of dough. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Sharpen the Axe. If you are watching on YouTube, or maybe you've seen a clip on Instagram, you will notice that I am wearing a special edition once in a lifetime opportunity Misfit Athletics Memorial Day tie-dye tee. We are doing this one time and one time only. Once they're gone from the site, they will be gone forever. Keep your eyes peeled at Sharpen the Axe on Instagram, and then head to sharpentheaxeco.com. Use the code word Keala, Keala. You save the 10% that you always save with the athlete codes, but we also donate 10% to the Keala Foundation. And obviously keep your eyes peeled for the Misfit Athletics semifinals collection. When you buy the semifinals collection, you are contributing to athletes being able to go to the semifinals and not have to worry about plane tickets and hotels and food and all that good stuff.
We are also brought to you by Pure Spectrum CBD. It is our favorite CBD company. They've had us out there a couple of years ago to check out their products, be on a podcast. And, I can't speak enough about their black label stuff, specifically their salve and their tincture. As we talked about in this podcast, and I don't know if you made it there yet, but you will get there eventually. I tweaked my hamstring, and one of the issues I've been dealing with is just getting comfortable while walking. Been dealing with a lot of inflammation, so been rubbing that black label salve on my hamstring, and I really have seen both a noticeable change in the way I'm walking around, but the way I feel day to day, and it really is making a difference. So you can head to Pure Spectrum CBD, use the code word Misfit to save on any order of any of their amazing products. We are also brought to you by Proper Fuel. You can head to properfuel.co, and use the code word Misfit to save on your first order of Proper Recovery. What's great about Proper Recovery is it has every single ingredient you need in a post-workout nutrition supplement. What's really interesting about it is that we've, through our research, found out that when you are trying to create new musculature or recover from training session, when you mix protein and carbs together versus having protein alone, you nearly double the effect of the muscle protein synthesis or that muscle rebuilding and regrowth that you get with protein alone.
Gains.
Again, equaling those gains. So again, you can head to properfuel.co, use the code word Misfit to save on your first jug of Proper Recovery.
We are also brought to you by Misfit Athletics and Team Misfit. You can head to misfitathletics.com for your individual programming needs, teammisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs, or if SugarWOD is the place that you like to receive your programming, you can head there and search for us in the marketplace to get either. We do 2 weeks for free because we believe in this program. We also believe that that is the amount of time that you need to go in and execute to feel really sort of the benefits of doing this style of programming. So misfitathletics.com, teammisfit.com, or the SugarWOD marketplace. All right, back to the episode. For me, absolutely none. I know better than that. But my lunch is usually about 3 hours pre-workout. You better believe there's a lot of cheese in there. Basically, every morning, I shred a lot of cheese and put it into a Tupperware with whatever meat I have chosen for the day, and then I take the scraps and I push them back together and make little cubes for my dogs. And that's almost every single morning. So cheese is still strong around here.
I definitely won't say it's an everyday thing, but our lunches are pretty similar when they come in here. A lot of times you'll see me with the deli meat and like the Boursin cheese, and I'll be scooping it out and having cheese all over my fingers. So, but for me, it's usually post-workout. I'm usually working out first thing, like early in the morning, so can avoid the cheese pre-workout because that kind of sits heavy. So I'm more of a post-workout cheese kind of guy.
All right, next question. When do we get a Ted v. Hunter v. Sherb v. Drew Misfit Iron Chef?
Ooh, that's a good question. How could we arrange that? Is there anyone got a kitchen big enough that we could do that?
We could reach out to Food TV and ask them if we could go to Kitchen Stadium.
I'm into that. Definitely into that.
I don't know if I could handle the pressure of cooking under like time constraints.
What would you go with, Ted? What would be the thing?
Well, you can't. That's the thing. If this is Iron Chef, then they tell you what the ingredient is.
Right. They pick for you. And then you're like, here's 2 hours, get it done.
We will someday pull something like this off for like charity or something like that. we can make this happen, but it's probably going to be like tacos or pizza or
bowl of cereal.
You know, yes, magic spoon cereal.
We'll need some
Please
volunteer cameramen if I'm in front of the camera cooking, though.
That's true.
Bill. All right. Next question. With wall walks in the open, what other weird movements would you expect to be tested? This is a can of worms right here.
I have two answers to this. The first one is something stupid like knees to elbows or sumo deadlift high pulls. Neither of those things are that weird, but they're of the same ilk. All you got to do is go to crossfit.com and scroll forever, and you'll find things that they would try to bring back into the fold. But as we talked about with the wall walks, the wall walk is a pike, a handstand hold, and then a handstand walk. Those are three shapes that we make in programming on a weekly basis. We do all of those things. So if it is knees to elbows, guess what? The little bit of that extra crunch there, instead of kicking, it's going to be a lot of the same movements. If it is sumo deadlift high pulls, it's pulling from the floor with your feet wider. Like, you know, you don't turn over in your power clean. So I wouldn't worry too much about stuff like that. I would worry, again, more on making sure your double unders are amazing and all of those simple movements are locked down, because that's what's going to be able to push you when it comes to open time coming around.
The only thing I could think of is if they would introduce some more strict movements. They have the strict handstand push-up. They could potentially introduce a strict pull-up or a strict muscle-up. That's a hard one to enforce. So it's it's one of those things where I could see it, but they'd have to have very specific language, or we're talking about a trillion scores that will need modifications, because everyone will think they're doing things strict, but probably aren't.
If you had to do a workout against games athletes for your life, what would it be? This is a great question.
Shit. I said 100 max deadlift as long as I wasn't going against Sam Dancer. That's not really a workout.
That's not a workout, and you would also lose. You're going to die if this happens, so you got to get it together.
Oh, man.
What would the workout be to save your life?
It'd have to include deadlifts and handstand push-ups and sort of super heavy barbells. So we're talking like maybe like...
I don't know. I saw you do the open workout with the handstand push-ups. I think you might want to change your answer.
Strict. 15, 12, 9, deadlifts at like, I don't know, like 405 and like a 8-inch deficit strict handstand push-up. Like, give me a chance with the skills and the strength, but don't ask me to breathe heavy.
This guy over here. I will go strict handstand push-up, absurdly high box jump. I've done so many strict handstand push-ups in the last year. So the way that I do my strict handstand push-up work, I take a number and I say, okay, I can do this many strict handstand push-ups for 4 sets. I know for a fact that I can do 4 by 15. So I'll do 3 by 15 with 3 minutes rest. And then the final set is your max set. My max set now at the end of that is higher than what my max set was before. So that's after 45 strict handstand push-ups. So I could bring the heat with those bad boys now. I mean, I bet I could do over 30. So you could do like a super high box jump or 2, 30 strict handstand push-ups, and then back to the box.
I was thinking of the one from the that competition you did way back that had like the heavy squat cleans and the ridiculously high box jump, and literally no one could like jump on the box. So it was just like you by yourself. That
was actually just our mock. That was mock regionals. That was the one that I won at CrossFit New England was like a 1 foot sled push, and then you had to jump onto these 2 monster truck tires, but you could use your hands. And basically all of the games athletes were like, who's this idiot and how did he win this event? I'm like, hey guys, I'll see you on the run power clean at 6 minutes later.
When you're cooling down, I'm still in it.
I beat Scott Paltos in that one though.
Never forget.
No, never forget.
All right. Opinion on arm bend in the snatch. I hear mixed things.
Do you?
I don't. I would. I do not think an early arm bend is something you're trying to cultivate there. If anything else, most times when you see that occur in a movement, you are compensating for I would say a rushed hip extension. You were trying to bring your hips into the bar, so you're pulling the bar to close the gap there. And that typically means you're losing efficiency and power in your hip extension, because if you have an athlete who is doing an Olympic lift and they are bending their arms, they're probably on the front half of their foot and their heels off the ground, so they're losing some of that power from their hips.
Weightlifting is physics. You lifting the bar, let's just put it into terms that everyone could relate to super easily. You pick the bar up off the ground in your 1 rep max deadlift without moving any other part of your body. You just pull to get, like, you're doing what you would do in an early arm bend, and then you have to try to stand up with the bar. That's probably not going to go very well.
Ouch.
There is nuance when it comes to this. We have weightlifters who are more based on having that vertical torso, getting into that perfect power position, dropping straight down, straight back up. Typically that is someone who is a little bit stockier. You have leverage-based lifters who like to get way out over the barbell. Sometimes they don't make it back to power position and they lift more weight than someone else. And it's like, you know, it sort of is what it is. My throwback is always to when we would do like home run derby at the Little League field, and you would have a round where you try to swing like Ken Griffey Jr., you do the Mark McGuire, all that stuff, and emulating the greats who are the exception and not the rule, I think is more the problem than anything. You should never try to create an early arm bend. Are you good enough that you have one and that we can clean up so many other things that you can lift as much weight as you need to be successful in the sport? Potentially. But the idea that it's one versus the other, that doesn't exist. You're not going to find anybody who says that. And if you do, well, you know, sorry. All right. Did you read that one?
I've read that one, so you're up.
All right. At M Dinero 23 for an inspiring MFT athlete, usually do Hatchet plus 1 to 2 MFT workouts.
I assume he means per week, maybe? Maybe.
All right.
Not really a question.
Not really a question. I will turn it into a question. Let's see. I'm going to have a go here. I am a Hatchet athlete, and I add 1 to 2 MFT pieces per week. Is that appropriate to make it to full-time MFT?
I would say yes, as long as you can achieve the target stimulus from the piece. If you are just doing it for the sake of doing it because you want to be able to say that you do a couple MFT pieces per week, that's not good training. But if it's something like, we were actually talking about this on Magic Bike when we were doing that, like why you decided to do the Hatchet calories and I did the MFT calories. And I said, for 90% of the things on the MFT blog, it is inappropriate for me to do that workout because while I might be able to do some of the features in the workout, I'm not going to hit the target stimulus. So more often than not, I aspire to do the Hatchet pieces or affiliate class, which is our Team Misfit programming. But occasionally there are pieces that I can give the appropriate intensity with MFT. Someone like Caroline's like, hey, would you mind come doing this with me? And as long as I can give her a good push and get a good stimulus from it, I'll jump into that. But more often than not, you're better off staying with what's going to garner the intensity we're after, which is making sure that you hit that stimulus with the Hatchet program.
Yeah, I would say that when it comes to Hatchet, I would go off of a rest day. So typically for most athletes, either a Monday or a Friday, you add one piece in. The good thing about Hatchet now is we have added more non-mandatory volume, so you might not even need to go to MFT to add that extra volume to get there, to go from 2 pieces to 3 pieces to 4 pieces. Also, you look at it and none of them are appropriate for you, but you feel like the volume is appropriate for you. It takes about 2 seconds to hatchetize an MFT piece. Okay, is this appropriate for me? Typically, we're looking for athletes to stay in that similar rep range and, you know, get that similar stimulus. So you're looking probably at modifying the movement itself or the weight itself to get there. There is a bit of an issue with completely changing, you know what I mean? Like, oh, I bet I could do 1, 2, 3 instead of 15, 10, 5 or something like that. So there is a big difference there. But yeah, you know, if that is the question, if it's the question we're assuming, you're definitely on the right track.
Yeah, I would say that's tracking the right direction. All right. At _ the new Mark _ are you guys going to be at any of the live semifinal events?
This is a great question. Why haven't we talked about this already? The entire Misfit Athletics crew will be at the Granite Games. We will all be there cheering on Caroline Connors, Austin Spencer, Roy Gamboa. Yeah, we're all going to be there. We're going all in on one event. Normally we have to divide and conquer and go to a bunch of different places. Most of our other athletes chose the online, or they are athletes who follow Misfit Athletics but are not a remote coach. So while we wanted like hell to have an excuse to go to Las Vegas, you know, you see how far off the strip the Orleans is, and, you know, COVID travel and all that. So we put all of our eggs. Never put all your eggs into one basket. I lied.
Unless we're talking about
going to, well, the Granite Games. Everyone wants to go to Minnesota.
Cheer. You're up, sir.
Right. At Allison Carley, when you guys program picking 5 from 3 to 8 in MFT, is 2 sessions preferred? We get this question all the time. Should I do 2 sessions? Should I, you know, completely separate this from this. What is the order? The answer is every single last bit of that is a personalized answer. We have athletes who like to do the all-day marathon where they essentially stay at the gym and they eat their meals and they, you know, you see them in the corner watching YouTube on their phone. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with the marathon session as long as you spread it out and hit the intended stimulus. Most athletes, most really successful athletes, do 2 sessions a day. They do that not just because of like the sort of physical, like I can or can't execute on this, but there's also the mental aspect of removing yourself from this place and sort of revitalizing and doing the things that you know that are going to bring you back into the gym. But again, there are some athletes who can't do that. They come back in for that second session and they've, you know, sort of come all the way back down and can't, I don't know, say get it back up, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's valuable too that when we talk about when athletes are competing is learning the skill of how to warm up, work out, cool down. You know, this when you do 2 sessions, you have opportunity twice a day to practice the skill of making sure you can get yourself adequately ramped up, executing the way you want to, and then learning how to cool down to allow yourself to do that. So that when you go to a competition, you don't have a great Friday and then Saturday and Sunday are terrible. Right. So again, it definitely is a skill to learn how to do that. And I think if you've never done it before, it's worth experimenting, but it's not necessarily a must-have situation. Again, it ends up being with your personal life and whether or not you can accommodate the marathon training or you need to split it up because of work or family or something else. Yeah.
And you can get yourself accustomed to that by, you know, throwing yourself a few gimmies every once in a while and saying, okay, these 2 pieces are going to kick my ass. You do those ones first, knowing that maybe it's just the fact that you love these movements that you can get excited about it again, but you don't want to rely on that the whole time because if your least favorite movement in competition is event 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah. All right. So at Train Harder CrossFit, what's your favorite back squat cycle you ever did? I have mine. I'll let you go first though.
So I have 2 answers because there's like the best one that I ever did versus we've essentially been a lab of like pushing each other to find the greatest squat program that we can have. It took a very long time for the Misfit Athletics volume squat cycle to come to fruition. I think it's the greatest squat cycle for CrossFitters that's ever been written. And I say that because we put 5 years into fine tuning it and we worked with athletes. We did it ourselves. We had all different levels of athletes get into it. And that is a weakness template on the site. It pops up once a year on misfitathletics.com, and that will be in the phase 1 through 4 sort of quote unquote off season this year. So you will have an opportunity to do that. It's brutal. And it's one of those squat cycles where you got to like wait a month to PR because it drove you overreach to the point where it drives you down into the ground. You're squatting 3 days a week. It's very challenging when it comes to that. So if I was going to give someone a squat cycle that I think was going to make the most adaptation within them as an athlete, I would give them that. But I do have to shout out just sort of the old school linear progression when I was struggling to get stronger. And as crazy as it sounds, we're talking about 3 by 10. Oof. And you just add 5 pounds a week to each set. So let's say you start at 185, 190, 195. The following week is 190, 195, 200. And you ride that as far as you possibly can. And I would say that probably made the biggest change for me. I was a novice lifter at the time, but that probably made the biggest change for me.
Yeah. I mean, to me, there's 2 squat cycles that come to mind. And again, there's a little bit of a dividing line here based on your experience and how long you've been training for. If you're relatively inexperienced, I'm going to go with Mark Repetito's 5x5. The Texas method is one of my favorite, absolute best squat cycles.
Keeps you focused for a long period of time.
Keeps you focused. You have the opportunity to train, test, alternating weeks. So there's not that like that grind of 8 straight weeks or you're just going up like 2% over and over again. So I do think for a newer athlete, that's an awesome place to start. It creates a phenomenal base, gets you good volume, but doesn't have you, beaten to the ground. But then I agree with you. If you're looking for someone to make noticeable change and to really peak that squat, you've been training squats for a while, you've got your technique dialed in, the volume squat cycle is where I've squatted the most in my entire life, having followed that after we refined it after a few iterations. And again, I think
Do you remember the 3 days in a row iteration?
I wasn't even going to get into that. I remember that just pushing you into the ground.
Day 2 was terrible. Well, Tuesdays were the worst.
What was crazy about it is if an athlete was already good at squatting, it was the best squat cycle we've ever written. And if an athlete wasn't great at squatting, it absolutely annihilated them.
Thrashed them.
So yeah, the volume cycle used to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday back in the day.
Sorry.
I mean, we had some people go from like 420 to 500
Yeah, we had quite
in
a
that
few
period of
athletes
time. So
jump like that.
I don't recommend it for a CrossFitter, but if you're, going meathead club, I definitely recommend that.
100%.
All right, where were we?
You're at State of Shock.
At State of Shock, now that restrictions are being lifted, training camp, ? We're never going to stop doing training camps ever. It's one of the greatest ways for us to make that connection from the words on the paper to what we're actually trying to preach. We took a number of athletes that had not made it to regionals yet to the CrossFit Games, and that connection almost always, like literally 9 times out of 10, came from being able to work with them in person. Either they were lucky enough to live in the area, or we were lucky enough that they lived in the area, or they came to a training camp. There's just something about connecting the dots on what we're saying. We certainly live at this intersection of this is exactly who we are as people, and we want to get to know you guys, but also we are experts when it comes to this. We don't take ourselves too seriously, but we really, really know what we're doing, and being able to show that in person, I think is so powerful. When someone shows up at camp and they don't think that they're going to learn anything, they come out the other side typically as the most excited person in the entire camp. I consider it my most fun challenge in all of coaching when there's like a naysayer at camp, because I target them and I really try to work to show them this is what we do. This is why we do it. Yes, we joke around a lot. We have a lot of fun because, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it, sort of a thing. But when it's time to like get shit done, that's what we do. So training camps will always exist. Do we have a schedule yet? No, we do not. We know what can happen to the restrictions. They can go up and down and left and right, and this person can do this and this person can't do that. And if I'm vaccinated, can I go to Walmart on Wednesdays? Like there's sort of all those jokes. So we will get that schedule out when we are comfortable with that, and then you can expect them to continue on and on and on and on forever after that.
Yeah, I'm just saying we're all of us here are excited to get back to it. We're just making sure that we do it in a way that keeps you all safe and, again, reties the community together. Because one of the coolest things, again, in addition to how cool it is to have an athlete get something new, or maybe say, no, you aren't going to teach me anything, and then learn a bunch of things, is that we build the Misfit community tighter. And I think it's what's really cool about our camps is that you come and you meet people that maybe you've never ever seen, or you've only kind of maybe seen on Instagram or whatnot, and they become your training partners, become your training buddies, and you create this network of people that honestly travel to camps together or go to an event, and you have that Misfit community connection wherever you go in the world, and that allows you to have training partners kind of 24/7. So the second we can safely do so, yes, we will bring those back. At Ross Merrick. Better to work on one weakness at a time, then move on, or multiple weaknesses simultaneously?
We need to know what they are. So if you are working on double under, wall ball, pull up, you can probably fit skill sessions in, whether it's 2 out of the 3 per week and you have a rotation going, that can work. If you're working on your 1 rep max deadlift or back squat, you're probably looking at more of a true 1 at a time type thing. It's dangerous to add too much volume when you're working on something. We find that a lot of athletes will come to us, we'll do a skill session in the gym here, and they will leave just like intensely frustrated. I can't do this. I'm never going to be able to do this. And then you see them 4 days later and they're just doing the movement because they've had that opportunity to let the idea breathe, not feel like they're under pressure. They're just working on something on their own. So you need to make sure that opportunity to grow exists. And if you're beating yourself into the ground with a bunch of other things simultaneously, it can be an issue. Yeah,
to me, it's just how much attention do you have and how much focus do you have? Because when you start to introduce too many things at once, something goes by the wayside. Because when you have too much on your plate, you can't give it the focus it's requiring. So again, I agree with you that if there are some smaller things like, hey, I got to figure out why I can't breathe very well in double unders, and you could probably do that in something else. But make sure that you really try to hone in on what the reason is for your issue and making sure that's kind of in check. And before you move on to making this laundry list of things to address, I do think there's a lot of value in giving yourself, I'm going to work on this for 3 weeks and see if I can make the change. And then 3 weeks to something else and 3 weeks something else, because that is just a small snapshot in your training window. And again, we don't want to get in a scenario where we're training for 2 hours and then doing 4 hours of skill work after, because you're going to start seeing diminished returns on your investment.
At Blake Trippy, when will the next phase start? Competition block 3 starts on June 7th.
Yeah.
If you are, so depending on who's listening to this, if you are a week 3 or week 4 athlete, there's potential that you will be tapering in what would be quote unquote week 8 of competition block 2, which does not exist for most people. So as we transition into that, don't worry about if you are a week 3 or week 4 semi-final athlete. You are going to have basically a free week in advance to download that is going to continue you on the progression to get you where you need to be. I will address, I know that was kind of a quick question, but I will address when we are in competition blocks and you have reached what you consider the end of your competition season, don't think that you have to start, you don't think that you have to wait to start back up on June 7th. You got to give yourself the week of affiliate classes, the 2 weeks, the 3 weeks, whatever it is, whatever you think is going to get you back into that mode, into that mindset of I'm ready to start preparing for 2022 again. You can insert yourself into these competition blocks whenever you want and just make sure you're moderating volume that's appropriate. So within the competition blocks, number 2 and number 3, an athlete is going to follow a progression of, if they're not competing, 3 pieces a day, 4 pieces a day, and then sort of back down. So if you hop in, it is going to be appropriate for you, aside from ultra specifics like I'm just going to not do piece number 4, or they're obviously following a linear progression on this lift. I'm going to knock it down 5-10%. So June 7th for competition block 3, it is essentially the updated version of phase 5 from last year, which was everyone's favorite phase on the site. So it's good to get excited about that summer training again. But I will say that if anyone has, finished the open or quarterfinals, AGOQ, and it didn't go the way that you want to, you can jump back in and get into this like whenever you want. And you can use Hatchet as a reference for what we would think the pieces you should choose are if you're going to do lighter volume.
Yeah, to me, it gives you the opportunity to redial in your intensity, but also what's fun about games prep is there's some of those outside of the box type of training pieces. You get in the pool, you get in the lake, maybe you do some stand-up paddleboarding, you do some unique things that don't typically happen the rest of the year, because we want to make sure those athletes that are going to be tested at the CrossFit Games are prepared for those things. So, for me, it's a fun time because you get drawn into some workouts that you wouldn't normally do. And it's definitely within your right to jump in and try one of those every once in a while. But just remember that if you're someone who is struggling to make that leap to the next stage of competition, that probably deciding between like the row sprints and going to swim on the lake for 600 meters, one's going to have a little bit more influence on how you do next year in the competition versus what's just being fun for that time of year. So, and just trying to make sure you think about that as you're choosing those pieces.
For sure.
The Jaj factor. Turn 40 in July and love Hatchet. When/why should I transition to Masters? Honestly, we've talked about this a few times on the podcast before, that for a lot of people that maybe look at MFT and say, I don't have the ability to do that type of volume, but I do think that the programming I'm following, like Hatchet, feels appropriate for me. When you're in those early age groups, I do think it is appropriate to potentially try out Hatchet and then maybe go to Masters or vice versa. But the consideration I would make for an athlete is that when we write the Masters programming, they were writing for people who are in your age group. We are writing things specifically that we think you need as a aging athlete to prepare yourself in the volumes moderated at a level that allows you to do it. Now, if something's working for you, I wouldn't say change it immediately, but maybe get a glance over on that program and just experiment with, all right, what if I did do, 2 less thrusters in this workout? Would it really change it for me? Would I get a better workout? So to me, it's really, I wouldn't say picking and choosing between the 2 programs like on a day-to-day basis, but every once in a while, I do think it's worth scrolling over to Masters and just seeing what's up over there, because I do think that it's important to realize that that is a different program. While it has a lot of the same, backbone as MFT and Hatchet, there are some things that are unique to Masters I want to make sure you're ready for.
I'm going to turn my answer into a question first and say, how much do you care about the Masters CrossFit Games season schedule? If you care about the progression from open to age group online qualifier to CrossFit Games, you should be following the Masters program, especially once we get in season. which is going to be competition blocks 1, 2, and 3, unless CrossFit changes their entire season structure again. But you're going to be looking at 4 off-season phases, 3 comp blocks, and that's how you would know whether you should make that transition or not, because Hatchet is based on MFT. And if MFT is based on someone going to the CrossFit Games and following a completely different schedule than the age group online qualifier, and there's no semifinals, then it makes sense for you to get involved with that. But just like you said, I would take the time to make the full transition, and no matter what happens, do it for an entire phase. So maybe you do comp block 3 as a master's athlete, maybe you do phase 1 as a master's athlete, and then reevaluate based on your progress. But if you're following a season structure, we need to be able to tailor something that was going to be more of a GPP type program like Hatchet, and we need to make it a competition program, which the master's program actually is year round.
All right.
At Lexus Bauer, if we work out in the morning, should we complete the morning movement and warm up? This one, I think, probably has a little bit of nuance to it. So we have athletes who have reached out and said, hey, I don't have time to do the morning movement before I work out super early in the morning. They'll ask questions about, what should their diet look like and what should their warm up look like. I would say everyone would benefit from some sort of abbreviated version of the morning movement. We talk about your morning movement, if you don't have time, could be roll out of bed, do 10, 15 burpees, catch yourself in a, down dog, dragon stretch, whatever, something like that. I think that's totally fine for people who just don't have time to execute on this. But if you're working out in the morning, you're relying heavily on that cortisol dump that your body gets when you wake up in the morning. You got to make sure that you're really utilizing that and getting the effects of telling yourself that you're awake. So if you're working out in the morning, but you do still have time, your times on your workouts are going to be so much better. All you got to do is go to a CrossFit gym and look at the 5 a.m. class times on the whiteboard versus the 5 p.m. times. They're drastically different. Doesn't matter who the athletes are. Your body's not necessarily ready. So if you do have time, definitely do it. If you don't have time, at least no one can say they can't do 10 burpees when they get in the shower in the morning.
This argument is similar to why we say you should do your primer before your open workout. You typically see CrossFit athletes, once they're warmed up and greased and ready to go, they do better on their second piece than their first. Again, to me, that it kind of fits in the same exact vein, in that if you get up and get moving around, even if it's somewhat abbreviated, I've seen you a couple times in the hotel when we're traveling, just get up and get 15 burpees in just to wake your body up. Still valuable. My only other addition to that is, if you find that on your training days doesn't make sense, sprinkle it on your rest days. You have your Thursday and your Sunday. Get up, see if that makes a change in the way you feel the rest of the day, how your recovery goes, how your sleep goes. Because again, one of the major benefits of morning movement is we're trying to get your body prepared to sleep that night, so that you are fatigued from a day of activity, so that you sleep easier, so that you recover harder, so that you go back to the train the next day and give it all all that you can.
I think you should read the next 3 in succession. I'll just rattle them off.
First one, still waiting for the release date of Ted and Hunter's cookbook. That's from the Zhaj Factor. Then at STA, is Sherb's hair real? Yes, it's real. And then at Caroline Connors, does Sherb have to put rubber bands around his ankles to keep his socks from falling? No, I don't, because I wear socks from STA and they are excellent and hug my skinny legs just fine. Thank you, Drew.
Wow. How often should we be working weaknesses during the week? I think we already covered this one. Depends on what it is. I've told the story a million times, but when the CrossFit gym was in my garage, I'd write down 5 weaknesses on the board, and I would do them ladder style, as an addition to training, sort of like you would do strength work, and I would check them off as I go until I felt like they weren't a weakness anymore. But that was old school CrossFit, where you might do a 2-3 minute workout and be done. So
those are the days.
Be careful. Listen to Rewind 5 minutes ago.
At JoeBro329, I started CrossFit 2 years ago. Been following a mix of affiliate class and Hatchet when my schedule allows. I struggle with skills like stringing together muscle-ups and chest-to-bar pull-ups. I want to get better at these skills, but increase my output as an athlete. How do I modify my programming to do so? We've said it before a bunch on the podcast.
I think this might be the same question, sort of.
Yeah,
right?
We've said it on the podcast a ton, but realistically, your workouts should allow you to convert the stimulus that the workout provides or is, describing to you. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certain workout formats where it is appropriate to potentially allow yourself to put a little bit of skill into a workout. Something that comes to mind would be like an EMOM that maybe started with wall balls and rowing and then did max double unders at the end of the workout. If you don't have great double unders, you can practice them because you're getting the intensity from the training piece on the front end, and you're able to still do double unders under fatigue. While you might not get an amazing score like someone else, you're at least working on a particular weakness. Conversely, let's say you don't have pull-ups yet and you're trying to do Fran with kipping pull-ups. Fran takes you 15 minutes. You didn't do Fran. You didn't do the workout the way it's intended. So while it's important to recognize the stimuli, know that there are opportunities in certain workouts to work on your skills, whereas other workouts is inappropriate. But our favorite way to do that is to do these things outside of skill, build in small, easy.
You mean outside
EMOMs.
of Metcons?
Oh, sorry, outside of, Metcons in skill sessions that are focusing on, hey, I'm going to be able to do 1 good muscle up, then 2 good muscle ups, then 3 good muscle ups. This is something we've talked about when I came back to Maine from Pennsylvania. Was decently fit, couldn't do chest to bar pull-ups. You say you're going to do 2, then 4, then 5, then 6 until you can get comfortable doing like all the way up to 10, 3 or 4 times. And then you'll know that you've built in enough volume and enough confidence that this is going to be a consistent movement as you do it in conditioning pieces.
Upper body heavy gymnastics. I'm obsessed with the ladders. I really am. I know that this is sort of a specific answer to a much broader question, but if we break down into the micro, the idea of 1 muscle up, shake it out, 2 muscle ups, shake it out, 3, you climb that ladder until you know you're not going to get your next set. Don't even attempt that set. Rest 5 to 7 minutes, do it again. Potentially rest 5 to 7 minutes and do it a 3rd time, but that would be sort of as you progress in the volume. You can do that for all of these movements. You just, again, have to be super mindful of where does it fit into my programming. That's why we put so much emphasis on why we think the complete tier is so important for people, is because if you can see your entire week at a time, you can go in and say, muscle up skill work is here. I'm going to move this piece over here. I don't really need to work on my, heavy kettlebell snatch or pistols today. 2 movements that I love. I'm going to throw some extra chest to bar pull-ups in. But when you can't see the big picture, it can be challenging to do so.
Yeah, it can also really affect your training if you end up duplicating a movement that shows up the next day and you're like, I just figured this out yesterday and I'm going to try to show out today, and I'm cooked from it. That's not going to be good training. So I really do love the complete tier. And there's also an awesome Tweakins template on our website. If you go into resources, you can see one to work on muscle ups specifically, both if you're starting to develop muscle ups or if you have them and you want to build better volume. We have a program for both of those kind of athletes.
For sure. I'll wrap this up just by saying that, again, we truly believe that all you guys listening to this are the quote unquote second executive producer of the podcast, of the YouTube channel. If you like these Q&A episodes and you do want us to do them monthly, just let us know. If you would rather suggest specific guests or whatever, this content is super fun for us to make, but it's also for you. And we hope that we can, sort of educate and motivate and do all that good stuff. So if you have ideas for this, if you want to see this, you want to see that, you throw that stuff out there. We had a gym member that gave us the recommendation to talk about how do you go scale to RX to Hatchet, all that. We do take those, those things into consideration, and we might morph them to make sure that they, can actually create a full episode. But always remember that we do actually mean it.
Yeah, we appreciate the questions. And again, we want to be able to provide you with what you want to see and what you want to hear.
All right, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning into the Misfit Athletics Q&A podcast. Thank you to our show sponsors, properfuel.co. Use code word Misfit to save on your very first jug of proper recovery. PureSpectrumCBD.com. Use the code word Misfit to save. SharpenTheAxeCo.com. Use the code word Keala, Keala, to save at checkout and to donate 10% of the order amount to the Keala Foundation, who actually just announced that the Ultimate Hawaiian Trail Run will be taking place this year on Kauai, September 18th. Mark your calendars. Either mark your calendar to have your bank account ready to donate money to this amazing foundation, or you got to put it on your bucket list to get out there. You won't even ask whether you should donate or not after you go out and see what's actually happening there. And, we're obviously brought to you by us. MisfitAthletics.com, TeamMisfit.com for your affiliate programming needs. You can head to the SugarWOD marketplace and try any of our programs 2 weeks for free. As always, I'm at Misfit Coach on Instagram. Slide in those DMs. Let me know what you thought of the episode, what you'd like to hear next, and we'll see you next week.